Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researchers Celebrity. Today we have Dr. Tanushree Gupta with us from New Zealand. And we'll go over with this multiple times.
Okay.
So a brief about Dr. Gupta. She has done her bachelor's from Chhatrapati Sahuji Maharaj University, Kanpur. And for master's, she pursued microbial food technology in Punjabi University, Patiala. And then for PhD, she attended Delhi University, but the research work was done at Vallabhbhai Patel Chest Institute in Delhi, and the specialization was medical microbiology. Currently, she is a senior scientist at AgResearch in New Zealand and also affiliated with Massey University for the academic collaborations. She has many accolades. Just to name a few, she was a recipient of Basil Jarvis Prize for Applied Microbiology, and then also KiwiNet Emerging Innovator in 2022. And in 2024, she also was awarded AgriFuture Grow AG Catalyst Program awardee. So, with this brief introduction, I would like to welcome Dr. Tanushree Gupta by saying thank you so much for taking time out for this conversation.
Now, thank you so much for inviting me.
We always start this conversation with our researcher celebrity that how and when you decided that you want to become a researcher.
Okay, so at the beginning, a lot of people say that they have the science acumen ever since they were a child. I'll be honest, I never had that acumen at all. I took time to decide whether I want to be in science or not, but I come from an Indian family, and everyone knows how Indian family was in the 80s and 90s. They want their kids to pursue either engineering or medical. So you have to be in science, right? So if you have to have a status in the family, you need to pursue science. So I liked science and I wanted to pursue science, but I wasn't ever sure whether I want to go into engineering. Engineering never was my field. But yes, I tried hard to convince myself to become a doctor, a medical doctor. But I somehow realized I wasn't really the right person for it because I was too sensitive. I would not have a strong heart to see people in pain. Right. So the another bet for me was to do something at the background, but still help my community. And my dad, I think the biggest influence in my life was my dad, that the only thing he asked me to do was whatever I do, but I need to have a say, I need to do something for my community. Right. So that was always in my mind that whatever I do, I have to do it for the community. Then I started pursuing my undergrad in zoology and botany. I loved botany. I loved chemistry. So I knew that I would do something in this field. But then when I had to decide to take up something for my master's, the best thing that I could do outside zoology or the conventional science was to either do biotechnology or microbiology, because at that time, late 90s and 2000, it was the upcoming field. Not many people knew what it was all about, but I took as a challenge that I'm going to pursue this. And because it wasn't saturated at that time, I would do what I want to do because it would be just the start of microbiology or biotechnology. So I decided to do microbial food technology. Why? Because it had microbiology, but the impact of microbiology on food. So it was kind of a combination of two different streams coming together and finding the right balance to do something for the community. That's how I thought. So I wanted to do masters and then figure out what I wanted to do. But I always had that one question in my mind since I was an undergraduate, that how we see phenotypes, we see a human being, we see a plant, what actually make them them? What's going into that micro nano level that we see that this is a plant which could be different from this, and how that happens? But I never had the answer at that time because it was just a general science. You study zoology, you study the physiology of animal, of human being, you study the physiology of plant, but you never came down to that nano level, what was making a plant. But I think when I started my master's and then I ended up doing, it was my second year, I still remember. No, sorry, the first year we had to do a summer training, and I went to IIT Kanpur to do my summer training for two months. And then we started off that question that how one gene can trigger a phenotype, that a gene level is something that expresses itself and you see a different physiology or a different phenotype of a plant, of an animal or mammals, for instance. And I was working on Drosophila at that time. So how those things were connected, how it was different. So I wanted to pursue the research from there on. So even though we were mostly wanted to focus on food technology. So my peers would learn product development, has no approvals to go into industry. But I took a step back and I wanted to do research, even though food technology group or that consortium never had anyone who would do research. Most of them were going into companies, food companies, but I wanted to go to research. So I was quite clear, and I told that to my molecular biology teacher that I wanted to be in here. So that started, instigated my thoughts that how a research would go into rather than going more applied first. So worked on a different projects on molecular biology. My thesis of master's was developing different vectors that we could use to clone into a specific bacteria that could produce different, say, enzymes that could be used for industries, right? Since then, that all started my understanding. And since then, I'm big into research. Now I've started moving into more of applied. But then I did what I wanted to do, but then I wanted to challenge myself because my whole career is I want to challenge myself. Then I decided to take a short break before I could do a PhD. And then I went, and I think I was quite lucky to get an opportunity to work as a JRF, Junior Research Fellow, the one of the most renowned institute, National Dairy Research Institute in Karnal. So after I finished my master's, sorry, immediately I got a chance to work with Dr. Bathish in Bathish's lab. Again, it was more on molecular biology side, designing a vector, and then how we can overproduce a an enzyme called chymosin that would be used for cheese production in a company. So earlier they used to use rennet enzyme. Now I guess rennet, we don't use rennet enzyme in the conventional way because it used to come from the abomasum of young calf. So you have to kill the calf and get the rennet enzyme, right? So that's how, I mean, I worked only for an year, but that project went on for a couple of extra years, and but I was involved in the initiation of the project. I didn't see the end of it, but I was really happy to be part of it when it started, right? So I would always cherish that moment. But then after that, I got an opportunity to work in medical microbiology, which was totally different from food, from molecular biology, but something again that was joining my idea to come back to the community because antimicrobial resistance was a big, big problem. It is still a problem in India, right? It was emerging as a problem, as a threat in India. So I decided to work on that PhD program, which was related to identifying what is happening in the hospital settings, what were the microorganisms that were getting resistant to different antimicrobials, and how that was impacting the health of the patient in the hospital setting. And that was well connected with the ICAMR project that I wrote with my supervisor, and we got funding from ICMR. And because we were a research institute with Chest Hospital, that was the best example of getting chest patient what was happening in that institute itself, because we used to get a lot of samples from that chest hospital, but also working with a lot other hospitals around New Delhi, and then collaborating with those supervisors or microbiologists alongside those hospitals and coming together and understanding what was happening. So that was part of my PhD, working to know what was happening, but also making a good collaboration um, with all these doctors around the hospitals, right? So yes, so that was kind of a journey, and it's quite of a mix and match, but it was all like I wanted to challenge myself with what was important at that time for our science community, for our community itself. Yep. So that was my journey to how I wanted to be in a research.
This
Sorry, I took a long time.
No, no, no. This says so much about that how serving the community is at core and is the driving force behind you and you becoming a researcher in the first place. I would like to take a moment to tell all the audience that Dr. Tanushree mentioned specifically about taking the break before committing to PhD. That is very important because it is like you are entering into a relationship where you know that you're going to spend most of your time. Sometimes you might like it, sometimes you might hate it, but nothing is going to change because you have committed for it. And mostly we discuss in these conversations that there should not be a step back in most of the cases, which is true also. But there are incidences when a student, after pursuing their research for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they step out, sad. Even worse is when they commit suicide,
I know.
which should
Yeah.
not happen. One of the parts which we want to do in these conversations with our research celebrities all around the globe is we all have gone through ups and downs. Stress is an integral part of research, but keeping the head above that water level always, because more than a researcher, you are a human. You might have good days, bad days, challenges.
Mhm.
As Dr. Tanushree mentioned, that she used this challenging uh, attitude for herself, that she want to challenge herself more and more and more in different fields, different aspects, and that is one of the integral part of any researcher, we'll say. But when you made it very smooth, you said, okay, I did masters, experienced this, then I was like, okay, I had an opportunity, joined NDRI, great project, then PhD, it went well. You did collaborations, you talked all about it. Now let's take a moment to go through that phase of PhD, from committing to it, like when you are like, okay, now you are a PhD candidate student, okay, and then the day of the convocation when you defend your thesis, they are like, now you are a doctor. This small, long, whatever you will say, that journey, how did that go? The things which you have learned, and you now can suggest the next generation that how they should handle some of those,
Okay. Yeah, it sounded smooth, isn't it? Because you forget about the past very quickly.
especially the
Um,
bad things.
yeah, 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 that's right. Okay. So for the researchers out there who are listening to this and the new generation who want to be in science, um, science is never easy. It doesn't come and fall on your lap all of a sudden. We are in a verge of that time in which you will find in the future things will become difficult. You have to accept this. It is going to become difficult, right? Because competition is at its peak, not only with a human being, but you have to compete with AI. Okay. And AI is something that can get zillions of thoughts in one point where you cannot win from it. But what's going to make you different to that is the resilience and the art of your novel thought process because AI cannot take that from you. It is your brain which thinks apart from the rest of each one of the individual you will meet. Coming back to the journey of my PhD, no, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't smooth. I will be very clear and sorry that I make this comment. Now things might have changed. I did my PhD in 2005, so I started it in 2005. Even at that time, it used to be difficult for a female to do a PhD. So you have to struggle with the immense pressure of getting your PhD right. You have to have that pressure of being a woman, but you have to be at the top and see what you can achieve. But I had a good support. I would say that I had a good support with my peers, with other PhD students in that institute. Um, Very nice supervisors and co-supervisors. But obviously, it's slightly different. When I see New Zealand, when I see myself as a supervisor, there is a huge difference between Indian supervisors and the Kiwi supervisors. So and you have to understand the commitment you make towards your PhD and that supervisor's expectation that because it's a huge name of your supervisor as well. If you do bad, it's the name of your supervisor. If you do good, trust me, it will be your name. But if it goes wrong, it comes down to your supervisor. So always have that respect of what your supervisor's demands are. I used to think not so much in this space, but now I understand when I'm a supervisor myself. Okay. You have to do what's best for your PhD, what's best for your own work, let alone what's happening around you. You have those 4 or 5 years in your hand to get the grasp of the knowledge which you will be the master. No one else. Even your supervisor learns with your journey. They don't know what's going to happen in your PhD. You are the only person who knows. So make sure that you have that confidence and you give your 100% to be the master of that. Things will fall apart. That is very normal. And that's the time that challenges you and you use it as a positive way to troubleshoot it. Those people who think that you can't handle it and you go to that extreme point that you think of committing suicide, your life comes first. Leave that. Leave at that very moment. Leave it. Take a break. If you think that it is better to change a supervisor, talk to your supervisor and go and find another supervisor. Okay. Or change the whole PhD what program if you think it's unachievable. But before that, sit back and think whether you are giving 100% to it or not. If you think there are still a time or a even a 10% that you think you're not giving it, try giving that 10%. Because at the end of the day, it is your PhD. But even if you think after giving that 110%, you're not happy, leave. Because you are into a relationship, as mentioned by Raja, that you cannot be in that toxic relationship. Even I had that point. It was getting really difficult for me because after 2 years, my supervisor decided to leave and go to Oman to become a professor in another university. So I was left all by myself with another student. She was also struggling as me. We were left alone. We had a co-supervisor, but it was still not having that sort of, communication with our main supervisor. Um, but it was a difficult time, but you know what? That made me what I am. I am so independent that I can write zillions of funding application all by myself. When I started my postdoc, they thought they gave me 6 months to train me how to do things independently. But from the second day, I was independent because I knew what I was doing. Because I knew how I failed. I knew how I came back from that failure. You know, failure is not a setback. It is something that you learn from and you jump 10 steps forward. You don't jump back. You jump back, yes, but you learn from this failure. And then you're so confident that instead of taking 2 steps, you take 10 steps ahead. And that's what you have to understand how you can do it. There is no competition with other people. At that point, it is competing with your own thought process. And if you win from that thought process, you can win. You can win anything in, because that is our comfort zone. Doing PhD in India with our own supervisor, with our own peers, trust me, it's a comfort zone. You see the real world when you come out of that comfort zone, and when people in the US, in the UK, in Germany, even in New Zealand, they challenge you. And then you think, do I stand here? Do I belong here? Because first of all, you have that culture shock. And on top of it, you don't even understand their accent, right? You struggle in so many ways. So, have that have that strength in your mind, have that positivity, get that challenge and make it your positive energy, because the real struggle starts afterwards. Have that, have those 4 5 just to yourself. Think how you can make yourself that positive person to face the real world after that. Now, that's going to be really challenging for this next generation, because they are too sensitive. If you think you're too sensitive, if you think you can't commit doing PhD, if you think you don't have that research acumen, or if you think you are extremely intelligent and you can do a lot of things in a better way than the rest of the world, I think you should go and find another way to pursue something else. Research is not for you, because research needs patience, and respect for what you do and respect for your peers. If you don't have this, please go and find something else. But if you think you can commit for the research to do good, something for your community, something for your friends, something for your next generation, yes, only then come. Otherwise, don't. Otherwise, do something else that you think you are better. Because I've seen people, they think they are extremely smart and they can win the world. Yeah, please do it. But please make this world a better place to live for, not only for yourself, but for all of us. That's the thing that I keep in mind. Yeah,
Absolutely. No, this is something which we also say, that do whatever makes you happy. And if research happen to be that thing, then we are there to support you the ways we can. And one of the aim of these conversation is that if any researcher, if they are struggling through some of the things and they already follow your papers, now they have this conversation which they can hear, listen, and then make some sense out of it. They can write it to you or to Empowering Science Foundation that, hey, I want to be in touch with such and such a researcher celebrity. Can you help bridge this gap? And then we are like, if you are passionate enough about your research that you go on net, you listen to a conversation, and now you want to make a connection with them. It shows something about you. As you mentioned that if you think you can do everything, sure, but that's not how the research works. There
yeah,
are there are more than type of challenges you can think today that you will see in PhD. And trust me, more than 100 folds of that. And I'm talking about logarithmic fold, not even, linear one.
exactly.
It's
I
like,
know,
yeah,
yes.
like the things which
Exponential. Yeah.
on day one you think it's easy. Yeah, absolutely. And then comes the days when you have to attend family meetings, some pressure from relationship, from work, from peers, and
Yep.
then you say that you have done one single experiment 100,000 times. On one day, you mess it up.
Yeah.
And now you already are in a bad shape. Now this thing just flares everything else because
Mm,
this is
mm.
the thing you are confident about. You're like, I can do this in my sleep. Yes. What happened today? Because you were not there. Being with your body in the lab doesn't say anything about it if your brain is not with you. And this
Exactly.
coming back with you that if you have to take breaks, there is nothing wrong in that. Burnouts are the real thing we do talk about. Now we have started talking about mental health in students. PhD graduates. Sure, yes. But how it is less important for being a faculty? Because Dr. Gupta also mentioned one thing, that how now she feels that from a PhD student to a supervisor who have these PhD students. Now you're on the other side of the table. Things never changes. You might think that, okay, now you are graduated, you have your PhD. It is the start of the world. PhD train
Yeah.
you to take whatever the world has to dump on you. It is just
Yeah.
the start. So let's take a moment to take the journey after the PhD. So now, yes, Dr. Gupta has defended the PhD from that day till now. What are the experiences in the research you would like to share with the audience?
Mm. Okay. When I finished my PhD, I actually, at that time, my husband, so I got married while I was doing PhD, and my husband was in New Zealand because he started his PhD at that time. So I was towards the end of my PhD when we got married. So he was already there. Um, and I mean, he was here. I'm in New Zealand now. So I decided I'm going to go and take a good break and see India because I've never seen the whole India, right? Being an Indian, I've never seen. I'm going to see India. I'm going to take a break. And then I'm going to go and join my husband's in New Zealand. But for some reason, couldn't happen. I finished, that was my last day. I remember I handed over my thesis to my supervisors. And then 2 days later, I think within that week, I booked my tickets and I was off to New Zealand. So I thought I'm going to take 6 months break. Yeah. And listen, those who are listening, look, this is me who did what? It's good to take a break after doing your PhD, after submitting your thesis. Trust me, it's going to make your life so easy because that's the time when you start thinking and following up what you actually want to do after your PhD, whether you want to go to industry or you want to be still in research, and what are the right pathways to reach to that, right? To that goal. For me, Joe, I came to New Zealand, now coming from New Delhi, such a chaotic life. I ended up in New Zealand, which was absolutely so calm and peaceful. Well, that's why we chose New Zealand, right? Because it was really peaceful. And it was so peaceful that it used to buzz in my ears because it was so silent and calm. Yeah. I decided, okay, I'll be at home. I'll go and travel New Zealand and see what New Zealand is. But trust me, that 1 month was so difficult for me to be away from doing something and away from science. I felt like I'll I'll be left behind if I don't jump into my work back again. And I think that was part of the way we were groomed, the way we worked day in and day out in our PhD, that my mind said you cannot stop. My body wanted to stop, but my mind said you cannot stop because it was already there in my back of my mind. That's why I'm saying this is me who did this, but please take a break, take a good break. I would suggest that. But within a week, sorry, within a month, I got really bored because there wasn't much. I was in Hamilton at that time, still working, still wanted to work with AgResearch because my husband was doing PhD in AgResearch. So one day I just went to his lab and I said, "Oh, well, do you need help? Because I can help you around." We used to discuss our projects because he's in the same field. So we met at the masters. He was doing biotechnology and I did microbial and food technology. So we kept on talking about science. I think that was the reason that we married each other. So we didn't marry each other, we married science. Uh, so we knew about each other's projects. So I told her, do you want me to come and help you out? I can do PCRs, I can do DNA isolation for you. I can even do expression studies if you want. And he said, oh, well, it would be good that come over and talk to my supervisor. So I went and he agreed that I can help him out. But then he told me, if you want to be a volunteer in my team, do you want to have your own project? And I said, bang on. What could be? better than this if I can have my own project? And if anyone wants help, I can help anyone. So even though I wasn't paid, even though I wasn't meant to be right there at 8 o'clock and finish at 5 or 6, but it was so much fun for me to be with those people that not only helped me filling up my time, but it also helped me understand a new project. But most importantly, because it was a new country for me, it helped me to be part of the group, to understand their culture, to understand their accent, to be with them. Because they will not ask you to come along. You have to have that initiation to be part of that culture if you are leaving India and going somewhere else. So I I worked in that team as a volunteer for 6 months. And then during that 6 months, I started volunteering in another team as well. So I was managing my time to work voluntarily in two different projects because I was handling one project in one team, and then there was totally another project in another team. So again, coming back to that thing, I wanted to challenge myself and I wanted to learn. That's one important thing that I forgot to mention. Have this attitude of learning each time, because knowledge, learning never stops. And that's the only thing which will never deceive you. It will add on to make your brain more fertile and make you what you want to be. So keep learning. Never, even in this conversation, I'm sure I'm learning something from you, Raja. How to do things, right? Even from my students, I learn. I don't keep telling them, oh, you are doing it wrong. No, I learn. Open up your mind to learn. So just for that sake of learning and becoming part of the culture of New Zealand, I enjoyed those 10 months not being paid with on my husband's student fellowship. But on the 10th month, one of the team gave me postdoc, and they told me, we want you in our team at any cost. Even though I had to move from Hamilton to Palmerston North, they convinced me, we want you there. So I think me coming from India, having an Indian PhD, it was a big breakthrough for me that someone was telling me that we need you in our team. That was the biggest achievement for me, I think. Yes, I had a PhD. That was the biggest achievement, but I think someone asking you to be part of their team was the biggest achievement emotionally as a person. So from there on, I started my postdoc, then became a scientist, and then became a research scientist. So that whole jump from one country to another, I think I just enjoyed. I enjoyed. They never asked me to be right there at 8 o'clock to attend any meeting, but I used to be there. They never paid me anything, not a penny. But yes, if we would go out for lunch or a dinner together, they would pay for my that. So I was very, yeah, I humbly took at that. Um, but I just enjoyed science. I learned a lot and I gave what they wanted out of that project. And even though there wasn't any paper out of it from my first team, but they always come back to me still to know where and what I did and how I can use that learning onto another project that they want my suggestions on. Right. So all this while, even though I didn't get money, but I know that they value my understanding, they value my learning, they value my feedback. So it's not always about money. It's always about how integral part of a project, again, coming back to how you have touched the community, right? What you gave back to the community that they can benefit from it. So, yeah, that was me again, listeners. It is my nature that I couldn't stop myself, but please take a break. Please take a good break and then think what you want to do. I
Yeah.
always knew I wanted to pursue research, so that was simple for me.
And I think that is what keeps you going day in and day out, as you mentioned, like at 8 a.m., where like you know that you are not bound to be. It's not mandatory for you. It is all volunteer. But that science, that question that how it is actually going to make impact in the community, that what I'm doing today, either it can be fundamental research or translational research, any type of research, it keeps you like awake in nights when there are like certain experiments which you are like very hopeful of, and they do sometimes get fail. Yeah, that those are all part and parcel of research. But that's, as you mentioned, that taking a pride that what you know, that is also very important. Having that self-respect that okay, I have done a PhD, that doesn't make me less or more than anyone else, because what I know is I know. My supervisor,
Yeah,
and we
exactly.
started that point, as when you mentioned that even your supervisor doesn't know. They gave you a hypothesis, it can go anyway, but you actually work on it. You tell the world that, okay, I have done this. And that is like some of the times we do talk about this, that how any publication you have about, like, your name, this etal, that says that this work is done by you, and now anywhere
Exactly.
anyone in the world can use that, the methodology, the things which have been developed, either it is a product, or sometimes people, the kind of research you are doing on your experiment, somebody can come up with an industry idea or whatnot. These are the things which I say that when people have this fundamental research versus translational research, I'm like, research is
Hmm.
research. You can have all of your thoughts, we respect it. But when we talk about researchers celebrities, that's when everyone crumbles. They're like, oh no, we don't feel comfortable being celebrities. I'm like, you have spent years in lab, either a PhD student or at any stage. I'm like, even if you have done research for your master dissertation thesis, just 6 months,
Yeah,
you have given those months to research. You should be acknowledged and celebrated. That is what we
exactly.
do in these series. And the idea is to celebrate research globally, make this community, give this safe space, because, yes, not all the researchers are great in communication. There are introverts among us. There are all the personalities, any human, because at the end of the day, as we said, that all researchers are human at the first place. So they have their own human behaviors, individualities. But what we want to create is like, we are there for you in all your hardships. Just never give up. And as Dr. Tanu mentioned, that yes, if you think it is not for you, you can always walk away. In these conversations, this is also one of the things which we try to convey, that not everyone on the earth has to do a PhD. Not everyone on the
Exactly.
earth
Well
has to
said.
be in
Yeah,
research. You should follow your heart, do whatever makes you happy, because at the end of the day, that is the most important part. And I think in this conversation, Dr. Tanushree has made this very clear, that you can work without getting paid, volunteers, all of this, because your driving force is not money, is the contentness, is that happiness, that satisfaction which you get after doing those experiments, because that
mm.
it is just mere title. If you are a senior scientist, you are still doing the same thing.
I'm still in the
You are
lab
still, and you
doing,
are still in
yeah,
the lab and getting the same satisfaction after all those positive. Yes, I got it. The team got it. It never changes.
no,
With this, we'll say thank you so much, Dr. Tanu, for taking time out. We'll say to all of our audience, as forever, always, that if you want to write to Dr. Tanu, you can write to her. You know that
absolutely.
how flexible, open she is for collaboration, networking, and helping. Mentoring is very important part what she does. And then if you want Empowering Science Foundation to put you in touch with our researcher celebrities, we are there. The only thing which we ask from you is you have to just make sure that research is the thing which makes you happy. Rest, you can rely on
Correct.
us.
Yeah, very well said. That's
Thank,
amazing. Yes, you have to be sure that research is the way you get happiness from. I
yes. Okay.
agree.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you so
Tanushree,
much.
and for
Yeah,
all
no,
the
thank you
audience.
so much for inviting me. It was really lovely talking to you.
Thank you. For all the
Yeah.
audience, stay tuned for another episode of Researcher Celebrity.